It began with a silence so loud it shook the foundations of the WNBA. Whispers turned into headlines. Headlines turned into outrage, and outrage turned into a storm unlike anything the league had ever faced. At the center of it all stood Caitlin Clark, the rookie who wasn't just rewriting the game, but forcing the entire institution to look in the mirror. Her story wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about power, protection, and whether the league that thrived on her brilliance was willing to protect its own star or watch her collapse under the weight of neglect. From the moment Caitlin Clark entered the league, she didn't just walk into the spotlight. She became the spotlight. Overnight, she elevated the Indiana Fever from forgotten franchise to must-see phenomenon. Ticket sales exploded, merchandise vanished from shelves, and arenas that once echoed with empty seats suddenly overflowed with fans chanting her name. The numbers told the story. League app engagement surged over 6,000%, subscriptions tripled, and jerseys became priceless collector's items. For the first time in years, the WNBA had a golden goose, and it wore number 22. But that golden goose quickly became a target. The same rookie who generated headlines also absorbed punishment that shocked even veteran analysts. Week after week, Clark was slammed, shoved, and blindsided with fouls that blurred the line between competitive grit and outright assault. Fans sat in disbelief as referees swallowed their whistles, refusing to call obvious infractions even as Clark was sent crashing to the floor. How could a league that benefited so much from her star power fail to provide the basic protection every athlete deserves? That question cut deeper than any foul. Her statistics proved she wasn't just surviving, she was excelling. But every buzzer beater, every dazzling pass, and every three-point shot was shadowed by bruises and battered confidence. This wasn't simply the physical toll of playing professional basketball. It was something darker, and the whispers began. Was this treatment random bad luck, or was Clark the victim of something more sinister? As the injuries piled up and the silence from leadership grew deafening, the conversation shifted. Fans weren't just asking about the game anymore. They were asking about survival, justice, and the price of becoming a star too fast. What made it even more shocking was the math. Caitlin Clark took 17% of all flagrant and hard fouls in the league that season, nearly a fifth of the worst hits in professional women's basketball, absorbed by one player alone. Let that sink in. That was double the punishment any other player endured. Double. It stopped looking like coincidence and started to feel like coordination. These weren't accidents. These weren't isolated plays. This was a pattern so obvious it raised a chilling question. Was Caitlin Clark being deliberately targeted? And if so, why? The hits weren't the kind you shake off with ice and Advil. These were mid-air collisions that left her sprawled on a hardwood, shoulder checks that belonged on a rugby field, and elbows that made slow-motion replays look more like fight scenes than basketball highlights. Fans joked online that Clark was starring in an action movie, but the laughter carried unease, because unlike the movies, these stunts weren't choreographed. The danger was real, and what made it unbearable wasn't just the bruises. It was the sound of silence from the referees standing feet away. Game after game, the whistle never came. Clips went viral of Clark absorbing 3, sometimes 4 fouls in a single possession. Yet play continued as if nothing had happened. Opposing players walked away without suspensions, without fines, often without so much as a warning. Meanwhile, Clark was left icing her wounds and bracing for the next wave of punishment. In any other top sports league, stars were shielded, protected, celebrated. Here, the brightest new talent was treated like a disposable pawn. Fans were furious, and Clark herself could only wonder, why was she left alone to take the hits? Off the court, the atmosphere was no less hostile. Side remarks caught on hot mics, sarcasm laced into press conferences, snide digs from opponents when the cameras were rolling. For Clark supporters, it felt personal, an orchestrated effort to break her spirit as much as her body. And then came the bigger storm, the whispers of race, favoritism, and resentment creeping into every debate. Clark, the league's golden goose, was also becoming its lightning rod, sparking conversation that went far beyond basketball. What looked like a battle on the hardwood was becoming a war over identity and recognition. Because for some veterans, Clark's meteoric rise wasn't just dazzling, it was threatening. She was outperforming and outshining household names, including 3-time MVP Io Wilson. Wilson herself, though careful with her words, admitted the obvious. Clark's sudden dominance and the media frenzy around her weren't going unnoticed. To players who had grinded for years without the same attention, Clark's spotlight felt like a spotlight stolen. Pride was wounded. Politics entered the arena. And suddenly, what should have been a celebration of women's basketball began to fracture into a clash of eras, cultures, and unspoken resentment simmering beneath the surface. Wilson went further than many expected. On a live mic, she said plainly what others had whispered for months: race is a factor, and pretending otherwise is infuriating. That statement cracked a veneer of polite debate and exposed the raw cultural fault lines dividing the league. For Clark, it wasn't about race. She never claimed victimhood, never asked for preferential treatment, but she didn't need to. The optics spoke for themselves. A white rookie receiving unprecedented attention, while black veterans who had carried a league for years watched opportunities they had fought for suddenly rerouted to someone new. For those veterans, the frustration was palpable. Years of sweat and sacrifice, countless games played at the highest level, and yet endorsements, national coverage, and primetime slots slipped through their fingers, only to land at the feet of a player fresh out of college. The resentment was understandable, but when that resentment translated into hard fouls, open hostility, and unchecked aggression on the court, the line between competitiveness and retaliation blurred. Suddenly, the game wasn't just about winning, it was about making a statement. And Clark, whether she wanted it or not, became the vessel for that anger. Yet Clark herself refused to take the bait. She didn't rant in press conferences. She didn't tweet cryptic shade at her opponents. She showed up, played her game, and let her skill speak louder than the noise around her. Every three-pointer, every sold-out arena, every highlight reel dunked gasoline on the fire debate. The league had never seen anything like it. But with each passing week, the question grew sharper. Was the WNBA ready to embrace this kind of attention? Or was it scrambling to suppress it, terrified that its old guard would be eclipsed by a rookie phenomenon too powerful to ignore? Her teammate Sophie Cunningham made the stakes even clearer. Cunningham admitted that when she played for Phoenix, her team openly discussed how physical they would be with Clark. That wasn't strategy, that was targeting. Now, standing in the same locker room as Clark, Cunningham has publicly condemned the league's failure to protect its brightest star. Her words weren't about casual bumps or playful trash talk. She spoke about aggressive plays that blurred into danger and an environment where referees and executives simply looked the other way. Coming from a teammate, it was an indictment that shook the narrative to its core. And the cracks only deepened with the all-star voting scandal. Clark earned a jaw-dropping 1.29 million fan votes, a number that shattered league records and proved her unparalleled popularity. Yet, somehow, she ranked only 9th among guards in player voting. 9th. Analysts like Dick Vitale called it pure jealousy, a refusal by peers to acknowledge what Clark had already done for the sport. Because beneath the votes lay undeniable facts. Clark's rise had brought charter flights, higher salaries, sold-out arenas, and better television deals. The league was thriving in her shadow, and still, recognition from her peers lagged far behind. This was no longer just a matter of bruises and box scores. Legal experts stepped into the conversation, comparing Clark's treatment to a textbook hostile work environment. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act doesn't require racial slurs or open threats. Repeated, degrading, unequal treatment is enough. The numbers told the story. Double the flagrant fouls, more aggressive play, and silence from leadership. The Wall Street Journal went further, warning that the WNBA may be inching toward a civil rights lawsuit. Ignoring your most valuable asset wasn't just risky, it was reckless. And every ignored foul ticked the clock closer to eruption. History offered precedent. Harris versus Forklift Systems in 1993 established that harassment doesn't require physical harm. Repeated degrading treatment alone creates a hostile environment. In Clark's case, the degrading treatment wasn't whispers. It was physical, brutal, and public. Another case, Tossenberry versus Texas Department of Community Affairs, set the precedent that once unequal treatment is proven, the burden shifts to the employer. By that legal measure, the WNBA's inaction could cost it dearly. What started as just basketball was morphing into a legal and financial minefield. And Clark wasn't just a rookie anymore. She was a test case for accountability. The stakes escalated when politics entered the fray. Reports suggested that the Department of Justice, the Labor Department, and even Congress were taking notice. Senator Jim Banks sent a formal letter to Commissioner Kathy Engelbert demanding answers. Suddenly, this wasn't just a sports controversy, it was a matter of federal oversight. What began as bruises on a hardwood court had ballooned into a legal, political, and cultural storm threatening to redefine the WNBA's future. The league's silence, once seen as indifference, now looked like negligence. And fans asked a chilling question: how long before federal authorities step in directly? Then came the Olympic snub, a decision so baffling it turned outrage into disbelief. Clark, the player driving ticket sales, viewership, and global attention, was left off the USA team. Fans exploded online. Analysts speculated about politics, jealousy, and deeper current of resistance inside the league. Clark herself spoke out, pointing to the double standards. Opponents, she said, were getting away with things against her they would never attempt with anyone else. On the court, she absorbed elbows and collisions. Off the court, the media remained eerily quiet, refusing to investigate what millions of fans already sensed. Something was profoundly wrong. Even team owners contributed to the confusion. Sheila Johnson, one of the league's most influential figures, suggested that other players deserved the spotlight more. The comment baffled fans. Here was an owner directly benefiting from Clark's ability to fill arenas and sell merchandise, yet publicly downplaying her importance. Was this a slip of the tongue, or a glimpse into resentment festering at the highest levels of the sport? The contradictions piled higher. Every silence from leadership, every dismissive comment, every questionable decision painted a picture of a league that didn't know how to handle its brightest star. For Clark, the emotional toll was immense. This wasn't the rookie year she had dreamed of. Instead of celebration, it became a gauntlet of hostility, jealousy, and neglect. Every bruise carried more than physical pain. It carried the weight of being let down by the very system she was helping to save. For fans, the frustration was unbearable. How could one player carry the league on her back while being simultaneously abandoned by its leadership? How could the future of women's basketball be entrusted to a star treated like an inconvenience? Those questions became the heartbeat of a brewing rebellion, because this was never just about basketball. It was about recognition, respect, and whether greatness would be celebrated or punished. Caitlin Clark's rise was meteoric, her talent undeniable, her impact transformative. Yet she found herself not only battling opponents, but also battling the very league she elevated. And as her story unfolded, it became clear that the WNBA was facing a reckoning. Would it protect its stars, embrace its future, and heal its divides? Or would it watch in stunned silence as its brightest light dimmed under the crushing weight of controversy, neglect, and betrayal? The clock is ticking. But here's the twist no one saw coming. The silence wasn't just hurting Clark, it was tearing at the very fabric of the league itself. Fans who once rallied behind the WNBA as a growing force now began to question its integrity. Networks whispered doubts about investing in broadcast deals. Sponsors, once eager to cash in on Clark's star power, hesitated, worried that associating with a league accused of neglecting its biggest name could turn into a PR disaster. What began as bruises on one player's body was now bruising the reputation of the entire WNBA. The parallels to history grew impossible to ignore. Every sports revolution has its moment of reckoning. Jordan's battles with the NBA establishment, Serena's clashes with tennis officials, Jackie Robinson's fight against systemic hostility. Caitlin Clark was now in that crucible. But unlike those legends, her league wasn't protecting her. It was testing her. The question became chilling. Was this treatment designed to break her, to see if she could endure the brutality and come out stronger, or was it negligence disguised as toughness? Either way, the scars being carved into her rookie season would not fade easily. Behind closed doors, insiders whisper about meetings filled with tension. Some executives reportedly argued that the league couldn't appear to favor one player, even if she was the star driving unprecedented growth. Others feared that protecting Clark too openly would alienate veteran players already resentful of her rapid rise. It was a lose-lose calculation, and instead of taking decisive action, leadership chose paralysis. That decision, the refusal to act, became the most dangerous choice of all, because in silence, the message was clear. Clark's safety was negotiable, and her value was conditional. Meanwhile, Clark herself faced the impossible balancing act of staying strong without showing cracks. In interviews, she smiled, gave rehearsed answers, and tried to deflect the conversation back to basketball. But behind the scenes, sources revealed the emotional toll was devastating. Imagine being told you're the face of the league, only to be left alone when the hits kept coming. Imagine carrying the financial and cultural weight of an entire sport while feeling like a disposable pawn on the hardwood. For Clark, every day became a test of endurance, not just against her opponents, but against betrayal itself. And so, the storm continues to rage. The fans chant her name. The cameras can't look away. And yet the question hangs heavier with each passing game. How long can this go on before something finally breaks? Will it be Clark's body, the league's reputation, or the fragile trust between players and fans? In the end, this isn't just Caitlin Clark's fight. It's a fight for the soul of women's basketball. And if the WNBA doesn't act soon, the very star who saved the league may become the symbol of its greatest failure.